The first families who lived in Conejo Valley were Native Americans known as the Chumash. Artifacts and journal entries from Spanish padres and explorers give clues to the Chumash way of life. Their dome-shaped homes, called ops, were constructed from tule rush. Beads, baskets, and tomols or canoes give evidence of travel to the Channel Islands and trading voyages. Acorns, their staple food, was processed using stone bowls and mortars. These items, plus many cave paintings, tell us that the Chumash had a well-developed and prosperous society. From 1769 to 1821, the Spanish flag flew over California. Gaspar Portola was the first European to explore the California area. He passed through what is now Hidden Valley in 1769. In the mid to late 1700s, missions were established throughout California, led by Father Junipero Serra. The Camino Real, or Royal Road, which connected all of the missions, was one of the first major roadways in California. Much of the Camino Real became Highway 101 and runs through Conejo Valley. In 1774 and 1776, Juan Bautista de Anza was commissioned by King Carlos of Spain to explore a land route from Mexico through Alta California. The de Anza expedition traveled through the Conejo Valley. These signs can be found in several locations in the Thousand Oaks area, which mark part of the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. The original Rancho El Conejo was a royal Spanish land grant made in 1803 to two soldiers, José Rodriguez and José Polanco. Mexico achieved independence from Spain in 1821. The period from 1821 to 1850 is known as the California Rancho period. José de la Guerra, a prominent landholder in both Santa Barbara County and Ventura County, was granted the portion of the land grant which belonged to José Polanco. Rodriguez and de la Guerra used the land to establish cattle ranches. There were no permanent settlements in the Conejo Valley during this time. The only structures were small adobes for ranch hands and their families. When California became the 31st state in the United States in 1850, a new flag flew and a new era of settlement began. The heirs of José Rodriguez and José de la Guerra sold their properties to three men, John Edwards, Egbert Newberry, and Howard Mills. The men were speculators and the first land developers in the Conejo Valley. Advertisements for Conejo land stressed that soils were fertile, wood was plentiful, and the water was pure. John Edwards owned most of what is now Newberry Park and Thousand Oaks, north of the Ventura Freeway. Howard Mills's property include present-day Thousand Oaks south of the freeway, Westlake Village, and North Ranch. Egbert Newberry owned the land and built his home in the central part of Thousand Oaks, which is presently the location of the Civic Arts Plaza. New settlers moved onto the land and built homes and barns. The price of wool was very high, and the new ranchers brought thousands of sheep to graze on the green hillsides. It was during this time of bright horizons in 1876 that the Grand Union Hotel was built by James Hamill. This was the first commercial venture in the Conejo. Mr. Hamill was originally planning his hotel to be a stopping point for stages running through to Ventura. However, before the hotel was finished, the stage lines changed their routes to run through Santa Clara Valley. He then advertised the hotel as a health resort. In 1877, drought came to California. Without rain, the sheep had neither pasture nor water, and thousands died. The crops of wheat and flax failed. Landowners suffered severely. Egbert Newberry returned to Michigan. the Grand Union Hotel was sold at a sheriff's sale. The rains returned and people again came to the Conejo Valley. Many of these early ranchers are recognized by the roads that have been named for the areas they lived in. Andrew and Abigail Russell came to the Conejo Valley from Canada. They liked the warm, healthful climate. In 1881, Andrew bought 6,000 acres of what is now Westlake Village for $15,000. The Russells always wanted to have the best and newest things for their home. They were among the first to have hot and cold running water, an inside bathroom, and a telephone. Abigail was especially excited about the school that was located on the property. The schoolhouse was originally built by Howard Mills. As she wanted all of her 6 children to attend school, she made sure that there were enough neighborhood children to keep it open. 2 of Andrew and Abigail's sons wanted to continue to work the ranch. They raised beef cattle, and during that time it was known as the Russell Ranch. The Russell family eventually sold their ranch to developers who built homes on the land. Caspar and Teresa Borchard came to the Conejo Valley from Germany. Their family grew while living here, and they eventually had 8 children. In 1882, the Borchards bought almost 3,200 acres of land at the west end of the Conejo Valley, in what is now Newberry Park. They built a small house where Borchard Park is located today. Caspar was a very good rancher and was known as Conejo Borchard. He purchased the first combine in the Conejo Valley. It was pulled by 32 horses. Richard and Mary Jane Hunt moved from Maine to Santa Barbara, where Richard was a buggy maker. They had a large family of 7 boys and 1 girl. In 1876, the Hunt family bought 950 acres in what is now known as Lynn Ranch. They built their home on what is now the corner of Lynn Road and Hillcrest Drive. The family worked together to get their ranch started. They raised a variety of animals, had a large garden, and orchards. They enjoyed walks along Conejo Creek in what is now Wildwood Park. The post office was in the Hunt home. Mary Jane enjoyed visiting with all the neighbors who came to get the mail. She heard all of the news in the valley and would tell everyone what was happening. This olive tree, which was recently moved to the corner of Lynn Road and Hillcrest Drive, was originally planted by Richard Hunt and is a city and county historical landmark. Joseph Howard was born in Connecticut. He came to California in the 1870s and purchased 8,478 acres in what is now Hidden Valley from Howard Mills for $23,000. His home was the site of the first church service in the area, and the first wedding when his daughter Mary married Henry Stebbins. Lake Eleanor, which is located on Westlake Boulevard past Potrero Road, is considered to be the first concrete dam ever built. The man-made Lake Sherwood was the site of many Hollywood films, including Robin Hood starring Douglas Fairbanks, from which it got its name. The well-known Errol Flynn version of Robin Hood was also shot in the Conejo Valley, as well as hundreds of other movies and television shows. In 1890, 5 Norwegian men pooled their money and bought 650 acres of land on the northern end of the Conejo Valley from John Edwards. The men were all good friends. They paid a surveyor to measure the land and divide it up into 5 parcels. 5 pieces of paper with numbers written on them were put into a hat. They each drew out a number, and that designated which ranch they would own. 4 of the men married Norwegian girls, built homes and farms, and began to raise their families in the Conejo Valley. It was called the Norwegian Colony. The families grew hay and barley and raised horses to sell. They used the Potrero grade to take crops and animals to market. At that time, it was a steep and dangerous road. Once a wagon tipped over and injured George Hansen so badly that he was in bed for over a year. They decided they needed to work together to build a safer road. They worked for over 2 years in their spare time using picks, shovels, and horses to construct what is now known as the Norwegian Grade. The Norwegian Grade connects Thousand Oaks to Santa Rosa Valley. In 1902, an unknown disease caused illness and many deaths in the colony. This left many families unable to continue working their ranches. They sold their land to the Olson family and moved away. The Olsons remained in the valley for a long time and still have many descendants in the area. The sons of Lars and Karen Pedersen worked their ranch for many years. Eventually, Richard Pedersen donated his land for the construction of California Lutheran University. On the grounds of the university sits the Pedersen home, which is now a Thousand Oaks historical landmark. The Crowley family bought the land originally owned by Egbert and Frances Newberry. The property is located in the center of Thousand Oaks. The house that Frank Crowley built in 1910 is still standing and is a Thousand Oaks historical landmark. Near the Crowley house, Louis Goebel started a Hollywood animal training center in 1926. In 1929, the center that was eventually known as Jungle Land was opened to the public. It was one of Southern California's first theme parks and attracted thousands of people to view the wild animal shows during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. In 1969, Jungle Land closed in part because of competition from other Southern California amusement parks. The Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza now resides on the former Jungle Land site. In 1895, the English couple Cecil and Cecily Haig purchased the Grand Union Hotel. Descendants of the Haig family owned the property for more than 80 years. The building served many functions through the years. Besides being a hotel, it was also used for church services and school classes. It was also a boys' military school, a restaurant, and a gift shop. The inn was going to be torn down to make way for an on-ramp onto Highway 101. The Haig family donated the building to the community, and the Conejo Valley Historical Society moved it to its present site. About 5 years after the old hotel had been moved, it burned down. The community gathered together to rebuild and restore the hotel to the way it looked in 1876 when it first opened as the Grand Union Hotel. It is now called the Stagecoach Inn Museum, and it is a city, county, and state historical landmark and a National Historic Place. Today, the Stagecoach Inn is a museum. It has many outstanding collections that reflect the history of the Conejo Valley. In addition to the inn, the museum complex includes what is known as Tri-Village. Just a short walk around the carriage house takes the visitor to reproductions of the Egbert and Frances Newberry house, a Mexican adobe, and a Chumash op. These homes represent the dwellings of the first people who lived in this area. The carriage house has a collection of stagecoaches, a vintage car named Queenie, and an authentic antique gas pump which originally pumped gas in Newberry Park. The first schoolhouse in Newberry Park, Timber School, was reconstructed by Newberry Park High School students. The Conejo Valley Historical Society and the Stagecoach Inn Museum host many activities for the community throughout the year, including tours for local school children, which provide hands-on learning experiences, weddings, the Pumpkin Festival, the Antiques Fair, historical reenactments, and the annual gala La Fiesta del Triunfo, which celebrates outstanding volunteers in the community. There have been many changes in the Conejo Valley throughout the years, but one thing remains constant. This is a beautiful place to live.